Well, recently I've been reading Chainsaw Man Part 2 because I'm a big fan of Tatsuki Fujimoto, and currently we are more or less 25 or 26 chapters deep in Part 2. So I thought this would be a good time to address this. Throughout his writing of Fire Punch, Chainsaw Man, Look Back, Goodbye Eri, and finally Chainsaw Man Part 2, I have sort of noticed key differences and subtle evolutions to Fujimoto's way of telling a story. This time, however, we will only be focusing on his biggest jump work, Chainsaw Man. The original Chainsaw Man starts off with Denji and Puchita. I doubt I need to waste my time explaining who they are. Denji is your average boobs enjoyer, while Puchita is the Chainsaw Man devil. Chainsaw devil dog. Or rather, he winds up being a dog. Denji owes Mafia a bunch of money, and while hunting devils down helps him and Puchita barely get by. Denji lives an ass life. Until one day, the two get torn to pieces and thrown into a garbage bin by their former employer and the zombie devil. At which point, Puchita, he kind of decides to merge with Denji and creates a Chainsaw Man. Well, Chainsaw Man Part 2, on the other hand, houses Asa and Yoru. Now, here I guess I need to give some context. Asa is your average high schooler famous for having some kind of bad luck. This girl has a habit of tripping down at the worst times. Her tripping down causes the death of her family while she attempts to save a cat, while being attacked by another devil. Her tripping down ends up killing Bucky, the chicken devil, a cute little entity that honestly didn't deserve to die again. It was already dead when he was a chicken. And most recently, her tripping leads to her ending up damaging her mobile phone, again upsetting a bunch of wussies of devil hunters. Apart from Asa, we also have Yoru, the war devil, and somehow she ain't all that strong as she's supposed to be. Well, unlike Puchita, she can intervene and communicate with Yoru, so that's that. And I guess she has some sort of a grudge with Chainsaw Man. We also find out in part 2's first chapter that the teacher was a minor groomer and wanted that Asa pussy all for himself. Serves him right to be dying by Yoru's hands, having his head and spine ripped off from the base of his torso, which was kinda sick, bruh. Anyhow, as you might have guessed, both parts have changed quite a bit. Not just a change of protagonist, but also a tonal shift alongside a change in the setting and the characters. It's still gory and full of violence, but well, some characters are the same as well, except the roles have changed to a significant level. Denji in part 2 has become more of a side character, him being Chainsaw Man and going through hell and beyond in the first part. You still feel a sense of attachment for him, but beyond that, there's still a void his absence as the main guy has left behind, which Asa cannot really fulfill. And I don't really expect her to fulfill it because she's her own different person. And I kind of expect her to be a different protagonist for the story. She cannot really replace Denji because she ain't Denji. People need to understand this. Anyway, that thrill, excitement, psych moments are somehow lost in the transition of Chainsaw Man to Chainsaw Man Part 2. There's still a lot of psych moments in Part 2, but it's not the same way as Part 1. Chainsaw Man 2 has become a lot slower in comparison to Part 1, without a doubt. With that said, I still feel that Part 2 is better than Part 1 in terms of raw storytelling. Of course, Part 1 has its own unique positives, and nobody can take that away. We did have Makima in Part 1, so that's something worth missing, right? Well, on close inspection, Part 2 ain't all that different either. We still have the Justice Feminine Devil on our side. I almost called her feminine for some reason. So she ain't on our side, but you people get what I'm saying, right? Hopefully you do. A good antagonist can keep even the most mediocre stories entertaining. Just imagine what happens when that story in question is not just entertaining, but also not made. That's what Chainsaw Man had. Plus Denji, Power, Aki, and everyone else got so much room to shine and show their true colors that it makes sense why people feel that the original Chainsaw Man is a better experience. We still have the Darkness Devil who is due a second coming. Same for Power, I guess. Oh, and I would also like to see Nayuta again and see where she lands in all this. Though it's definitely going to be a lot different than what we all had in mind before Part 2. It's still worth looking forward to. Now that I praised Part 1, I think it's time I address Part 2. Part 2 of Chainsaw Man has been nothing short of a mindfuck. Not saying part 1 wasn't. Well, in comparison to Fire Punch, yes, but it still was pretty messy and chaotic. Part 2, on the other hand, doesn't have that. For better or worse, it's a lot more orderly and somehow controlled. Despite that, it too can create its own form of chaos, one that's on par with the original Chainsaw Man. Yuko being a proof of that. When that reveal of her killing her neighbor and her making a deal with the Justice Devil comes to play, you go into the chapter expecting something normal or stupid, or some slice of life kinda thing, and bam! What greets you is pure despair. Then all hell gets loose when Yuko does her own school shooting arc. It feels pretty darn part 1 like. Then she ends up being nothing more than a plot thread for the reveal of the new fake Chainsaw Man. I still think her promise with Asa still holds, and she will definitely come back as some kind of devil and help Asa in the future. Kinda like how power is for Denji. Denji, on the other hand, has kind of taken the role of Makima, or rather reverse Makima to a degree, being the primary love interest of Asa. Now, whether or not he will be an antagonist or not is still up in the air. There's also Yoshida. I'll call him Yoshida. Hopefully, that's his name. He was in part 1 as well, survived the whole Gun Devil arc, and then managed to stay away from Makima and not become her puppet. He also managed to evade becoming a potential weapon for Yoru or Asa when he declined her offer to be in a relationship with her. Now, if this was pure luck, this guy has the backing of Luck Devil. Who knows, maybe he formed a contract with something like that. We don't know yet, but if it turns out to be the case, I won't be all that surprised. Now, Femine Devil, rather the Justice Devil, she does have the similar vibes as Makima, the former Control Devil. Conquest rather. Both of them have similar eyes and have some kind of authority within the human world. I mean, Makima was the head of Devil Hunter Group Association, while Justice is a school council president. Then again, we kinda changed the entire setting of the show, so this somehow feels fitting. I really did not like Kobeni Part 2. I still believe in the original Kobeni superiority. Let's see if we get to meet her as well, or her car on that note. Would be interesting to see if Yoru and Asa lose control and become war monster, like how Denji did, and then bully this version of Kobeni in some fast food chain. I mean, the nostalgia vibe we are going for does make this seem to be a possibility. Well, there's a lot of room for the story to grow and cement itself before we can even fathom to compare it with itself. I'd say that at the very basic level, both Chainsaw Man and Chainsaw Man Part 2 share the same core themes. Both have the same old Denji, the one who scams old homeless people by giving them expensive cigarettes, or have somebody puke in his mouth, like that time with Hinemo. Yep, Denji is still the same. And there's also boobs too. So in conclusion, both Chainsaw Man Part 1 and Part 2 are garbage. You should read Berserk instead, and peace.